Are you feeling overwhelmed, angry, outraged, or even mind-numbingly horrified by the news today? Well, you're in the right place. Here are this week's headlines. Remember the police state in D.C.? Yeah, it's gotten worse.
Meanwhile, local violence de-escalation teams say they're concerned tensions around the federal presence may impact their work.
How many reasons can you think of for Trump to withhold the Epstein files?
Is the president lying? Oh my heavens, yes.
Trump, final arbiter of world peace.
Constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible to give up territory or trade land.
Trump, not a liar, just believes the voices in his head.
I didn't do any ceasefires.
We'll get to the first story right after I give you 30 seconds to click the thumbs up. Roll the intro. Trump enacted a police state in D.C. on Friday. By Saturday, we were already seeing protests.
Are you proud? Are you proud of what you're doing? She's black, man. That's all they need. Leave our neighborhood. You're not wanted. All the agencies that you could work for, why are you not proud enough to say you work for a certain agency? You work for police. But what agency do you work for?
This has not stopped Trump from bringing in guard troops from nearby states.
More than 250 soldiers from the West Virginia National Guard's 1st Battalion and other units headed to Washington, D.C. yesterday ahead of Wednesday's inauguration.
Remember that the whole reason Trump did this is to deter violent crime.
Meanwhile, local violence de-escalation teams say they're concerned tensions around the federal presence may impact their work.
So Trump took actions to deter violent crime in D.C., and now violence de-escalation workers in D.C. are worried that their job is about to get harder. But hey, at least we're not talking about Epstein.
And Trump utters, under his breath, he mutters, "Oh, I thought she was 16.
Trump immediately started serving the homeless with eviction notices.
Thursday, local officials continued to help remove people from homeless encampments.
We try to help them take care of their belongings, and we try to move them to homeless services.
Something the White House says it wants to accelerate.
West Virginia is not the only state sending National Guard troops to D.C.
Natasha, a stunning show of force headed to our nation's capital. Now 3 states. Ohio is sending 100 guardsmen. South Carolina is going to send 200. And then West Virginia is actually leading the charge here with up to 400 troops headed to our nation's capital. Those National Guard troops who are patrolling here in D.C., they may soon start carrying weapons. And the increase in troops actually is also causing this major outrage. Free D.C. Free
D.C. Let's learn a little bit about the governors sending these troops to D.C. Republican Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio won the 2022 election with 62% of the vote. His pre-deployment approval ratings were down to 56%. Republican Governor Henry McMaster of South Carolina won the 2022 election with 58% of the vote. His pre-deployment approval ratings were down to 43%. Republican Governor Patrick Morrisey of West Virginia won the 2022 election with 62% of the vote. His pre-deployment approval ratings were down to 52%. So 3 of Trump's crony Republican governors sent National Guard troops to D.C. All 3 of these gentlemen have lower approval ratings now than they did when they took office. Now the people in D.C. are protesting the National Guard troops being there. Bondi attempted to use an executive order to replace the D.C. police chief Pamela Smith with DEA Administrator Terry Cole. The D.C. Attorney General sued, saying this was unlawful. The judge agreed. Bondi redacted that part of her order. Then D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb said this.
In all cases, those services must be requested to the mayor to be provided by the chief of police, not a hostile takeover of our police. And if it means standing up to the president, standing up to the attorney general to ensure that the laws of our country are followed, we will do that.
In a shocking turn of events, DC residents are still not happy about living in a police state. In an even more shocking turn of events, it appears the Trump administration is going to do the opposite of what logic dictates.
National Guard troops patrolling here in our nation's capital may soon start carrying weapons. This is a major shift after officials previously said the troops would not be armed on the streets of D.C.
Blondie Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, doesn't even know what is legal and what is not. Residents are at a heightened state of agitation, which increases the chances of violent crime happening, and Taco is still happy that we're not talking about the Epstein files.
The FBI guessed, based on that brief description, that I was discussing Donald Trump.
They did release some official numbers related to crime.
New numbers released today showing overnight that law enforcement in D.C., they actually arrested 52 people, bringing those total arrests since operations began back on August 7th to 240 people.
I'm going to leave that slide up so I can point out that they confiscated 35 legal firearms from people. I guess Republicans have changed their mind about gun ownership after all.
Thanks for telling me.
Our third story is about Taco attempting to end the war in Ukraine. In Taco's ongoing attempt to prove he can't stay on topic about anything, he talked about the DC police state during his press conference with Zelensky. Let's take a look at that now.
He said, what you've done is incredible, and I think the people realize it.
Here is a map that visually represents the danger of each country. Notice that the United States isn't even one of the red countries. The 5 most dangerous cities in the U.S. are St. Louis, Missouri, New Orleans, Louisiana, Detroit, Michigan, Washington, D.C., and Atlanta, Georgia, in that order. Looks like the voices in Taco's head are lying to him again. Do you remember this? No one, I repeat, no one wants to live in a police state unless they control the police.
Remember, you need teamwork to win, not arguments.
Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
This is evidenced by the fact that Taco took control of the DC police before moving in the federal agencies and military. If Taco wanted to live in a police state where he did not control the police, he would have just moved in the feds and the military without taking control of the DC police force. At least Taco's releasing the Epstein files. Oh, wait! For the 2 of you who haven't been following the story, Jeffrey Epstein ran a pedophile ring for the wealthy and powerful. He got caught and unalived himself while he was in jail. His gal Friday, Ghislaine Maxwell, is currently the only person serving a prison sentence for this. Trump promised to release the files.
There's a lot of intrigue surrounding the release of the Epstein files.
Well, Pam Bondi's done a phenomenal job in every respect. But the bottom line is the records are getting out.
Bondi said they were on her desk for review.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Then Trump said they were all a made-up Democrat conspiracy.
I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden,
Okay, so 2 things. First, the words he's looking for are Biden administration. Second, if those files are made up, then why is Maxwell still in prison? Speaking of Maxwell, the DOJ had a closed-door talk with her.
Ghislaine Maxwell's sit-down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche comes as pressure builds across party lines for answers.
Then Bondi, lost the files, or her desk, or her dental dam, or something.
Today, the Justice Department announced that it finds no evidence that accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein kept a client list or that he was murdered.
On a completely unrelated note, Maxwell was moved to a minimum security facility in Texas.
And Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been moved from a prison in Florida to a prison camp in Texas.
This is like Schrodinger's menagerie of inanimate objects. A list of rich and powerful pedophiles either does or does not exist. This list either is or is not with Blondie Bondi's dental dam, and Taco is either on the list or he would have released it already. But in any event, that brings us to what happened last week. 60 Minutes Australia released an entire 30-minute segment about this. Let's see what the media that Taco doesn't control is saying.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
They traveled to Little Rock, Arkansas to interview victim Maria Farmer.
Is the president lying? Oh, my heavens, yes.
Ms. Farmer definitely sums the situation up better than I can.
It's one of the most egregious acts of injustice I've ever witnessed. It feels like Watergate times like a billion because it involves children. And I think that what he's doing is trying to cover up his association or affiliation with these people.
Watergate times a billion? How about Pizzagate times infinity? Because the Epstein affair actually happened. Ms. Farmer also gave us some previously unheard insight into how Epstein viewed Trump.
Epstein said when Trump and his wife divorced, Ivana, he said, I inherited Trump and Ghislaine inherited Ivana. And so you'll see Ivana at the house a lot and you'll see Trump at the offices, but the twain will never cross. They'll never meet.
Ms. Farmer says she met Trump at Epstein's offices when she was 20, the night before beginning her employment with Epstein.
So I get there and I'm all sweaty in running shorts. Donald Trump walks in and he's really strange and he stood, hovering and smirking. No, Maria, no, she's not here for you. And Trump utters, under his breath, he mutters, oh, I thought she was 16.
The White House contests Ms. Farmer's memory, claiming Trump was never at Epstein's offices, but Trump talked about Epstein in an interview.
And in 2002, he described Jeffrey Epstein as a terrific guy, telling a journalist that his friend was a lot of fun to be with, and that he liked beautiful women, many on the younger side.
The victim is saying that Taco thought she was 16 years old when he hovered over her inappropriately. In 2002, Taco said Epstein liked his girls on the younger side, but we're supposed to believe that Taco is not in those files. Trump started singing a different song after Epstein's arrest and conviction.
For years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. Again, he stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again, and I threw him out of the place.
Hey, Taco. People steal possessions. They do not steal other people, especially survivors like Virginia Giuffre. Farmer was the first victim to blow the whistle on Epstein all the way back in 1996.
Trying to explain to this man at the FBI that children are in severe danger. And so I told him, I said, listen, I'm calling to report an international pedophile and child porn ring. This is a federal crime.
Farmer even told the FBI about Trump being involved on that first call.
And I said, I can't remember if I described him as a game show host or used car salesman or something like that. But I said, he's a prominent businessman. He's a New York fixture. And they said, oh, Donald Trump. The FBI guessed, based on that brief description, that I was discussing Donald Trump.
So the FBI began a full, thorough investigation immediately, right? No, they ignored her claims and filed that report in a place where it still has not been found. Do you remember how Trump was an early supporter of the Epstein killed himself to protect his client list theory?
When Jeffrey Epstein's death in 2019 was ruled a suicide by a New York medical examiner, almost immediately, President Trump publicly latched on to conspiracy theories that it was part of a cover-up to protect his client list.
During the 2024 presidential campaign, Trump and his MAGA cult clamored for the release of the Epstein client list.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Release the list. Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
Even some of the staunchest Trump supporters spoke against him after he said there was no list.
I can't reconcile this Donald Trump with the Trump that we're seeing right now, the Trump that is gaslighting the public right now. The Epstein scandal is definitely terminal cancer.
Candace Owens is a black woman who made a video for Prager University denying that slavery was a major cause of the Civil War. If you are on the right and you made Ms. Owens say bad things about you, it is time to listen, my dude. That is nothing compared to what Ms. Farmer had to say about Maxwell's interview and subsequent move to a minimum security facility.
It's disgusting. Ghislaine is a liar and a pedophile. Who gives credence to that?
I will make no attempt to make light of pedophilia or its ramifications. That is nothing to laugh at under any circumstances. Well, maybe unless you're on the Epstein lists. then you might find it amusing.
Yeah.
I am not about black and white thinking in any way, shape, or form. Life is lived in the shades of gray that make decisions difficult, painful, and sometimes obscure. But there are some things that you only do for one reason. And one of those things is not releasing the Epstein list. And that reason is you are protecting someone.
Running away.
Leads nowhere. Now I know. And knowing is half the battle.
I cannot say for certain that Trump is a pedophile in the same way I can't say for certain that the sun will come up tomorrow. I cannot say that Taco is on the Epstein list for certain in the same way I cannot say that the giraffes at the Jacksonville Zoo are doing fine for certain. But I can tell you for certain there is only one way to get me to shut up about this.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list.
Last week we talked about the Puffin Taco Alaska Summit, but we filmed before it actually happened, so let's get back to that. I told you about the Puffin Taco Summit in Alaska last week. I'll link to it on the end screen. This week we pick up after the summit. Let's start with the Puffin Taco press conference.
Our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful.
Putin then proceeded to talk about the US and Russia having a great shared history of owning Alaska. We're actually close neighbors because of Alaska, and how we cooperated to get aircraft to the front lines in World War II before he said this.
We'll always remember other historical examples when our countries defeated common enemies together in the spirit of battle camaraderie and allyship.
Mr. Putin, what are we supposed to gather from you discussing defeating common enemies with the US after a peace summit about Ukraine? Then Putin transitioned to talking about how during the Biden administration, US-Russia relations fell to the lowest point since the Cold War, and how great it is that he can talk to our president again. Finally, he said this about Ukraine.
And everything that's happening is a tragedy for us, a terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it.
Seriously? Seriously? You want to end the war? Just go home. You're the invading army. Then it was Trump's turn to talk.
I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on. Most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway.
When they were done talking, they just walked off stage without taking questions.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I am surprised that they didn't really say anything about what happened at the summit, but only because Taco actually kept his word. He did say that Zelensky would be the first to know what happened. And at least we're not talking about the Epstein files.
Release the list.
Prior to the summit in Alaska, the Coalition of the Willing, which is what Zelensky's allies call themselves, held a meeting that did include Zelensky.
Any ceasefire would have to be lasting, and to be lasting, it would need security guarantees, and that's why we set up this Coalition of the Willing, because this meeting on Friday that President Trump is attending is hugely important. We have to combine active diplomacy with military support to Ukraine. There can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. And I know Volodymyr is on the call that international borders cannot be and must not be changed by force. I think it's important that we all continue to work alongside President Trump, alongside President Zelensky.
On his way to Monday's sit-down with Trump in D.C., Zelensky stopped by Brussels. He was hosted by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who called for strong security guidelines.
We must have strong security guarantees to protect both Ukraine and Europe's vital security interests. There can be no limitations on Ukrainian armed forces. At the same time, we continue to support Ukraine's path to its membership in the European Union.
Von der Leyen was also incredibly firm about land swapping.
As long as the bloodshed in Ukraine continues, Europe will maintain diplomatic and, in particular, economic pressure on Russia.
I'm glad that President von der Leyen will be with Zelensky at the White House, because now at least there will be two people in the room who realize that ceding land to an invading army is not the way to create a lasting peace.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Finally, von der Leyen committed to keeping pressure on Russia.
International borders cannot be changed by force. These are decisions to be made by Ukraine and Ukraine alone.
President Zelensky stated that any land swaps would be impossible.
The Constitution of Ukraine makes it impossible to give up territory or trade land.
Wait, you mean Zelensky isn't just going to ignore his country's constitution the way Taco does?
Slam! You're fired! You can't fire me! Oh, we just did. Oh.
For this next part, just remember, if you think my clips are missing context, you are welcome to go down to the description, click on the link, and watch the entire thing yourself. By the way, still not talking about the Epstein list.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
So Zelensky and Trump held a press conference. Right out of the gate, Trump got confronted with the fact that Zelensky said Russia must end the war it started, and Trump said Ukraine can end the war anytime it wants. And this is how he responded.
We're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
When he asked which side has the better cards, Trump said,
"This isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war."
A reporter who may or may not lean right asked Zelensky if he would redraw the maps or keep sending Ukrainians to their death.
We need to stop this war to stop Russia, and we need support.
So far we know that Taco wants a trilat to end Biden's war, and Zelensky just wants to end the war without breaking Ukraine's constitution. This is what Trump had to say about providing military support to secure peace in Ukraine.
If there's peace, the peace is going to stay long term. This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again.
Trump got asked what the root causes Putin referred to were, and he said,
"Look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended."
Then Trump responded to a question about Ukraine ceding territory to Russia like this.
We're going to have a lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace.
So for now, we know 3 more things for sure. This war will end. That end will result in a lasting peace. And Taco can't explain how any of this is going to happen. But at least we're not talking about the Epstein files.
The Trump that is gaslighting the public right now.
While responding to a question about elections in Ukraine, Zelensky said,
"Because during the war you can't have elections, but we..."
Then Trump said this.
During the war, you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections?
So I guess Taco isn't going to run in 2028. He's just going to start a war on U.S. soil, so there are no elections in 2028. After the press conference, Trump and Zelensky had a meeting with 7 of Europe's leaders.
So I'm honored to welcome NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom, our friend and my friend, and President Macron of France, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, who's a Chancellor Merz of Germany, President Stubb of Finland, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen.
Basically, they went around the table and everyone made a statement. The NATO Secretary General spoke first.
Mark, as head of NATO, maybe you could say a few words.
We could end this, and we have to end this. We have to stop the killing, we have to stop the destruction of Ukraine's infrastructure.
The EU President, Ursula von der Leyen, spoke next.
On a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, stop the killing. This is really our common interest, stop the killing.
President von der Leyen also spoke about returning Ukraine's children. They do seem to be hitting Trump pretty hard about ending the war, and no one has mentioned the Epstein files.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Then Germany's chancellor spoke.
And to be honest, we all would like to see a ceasefire, the latest from the next meeting on.
Then came Italy's prime minister, who, remember, was personally invited to Trump's inauguration.
And the reason why I mention it is that we also have to remind that if we want to reach peace and if we want to guarantee justice, we have to do it united.
If I translate that from politician to English, I'm pretty sure she just told Trump to get on board. I'm equally certain that Trump did not understand that. The president of France said this.
Everybody around this table
is in favor of peace.
The president of Finland said,
and I think the fact that we're around this table today is very much symbolic in the sense that it's Team Europe and Team United States helping Ukraine.
See how he's separating Team Europe and Team USA? That is a subtle jab for Trump to get on board. Unfortunately, he didn't mention the Epstein files.
It's disgusting.
Zelensky did his own press conference before flying out of the US. Let's discuss some of the things he said there. Looks like Ukraine has a lot of support from the world. It also looks like Russia wants to cut Trump out of the next round of meetings.
Russia proposed a two-way Ukraine-Russia meeting first, then a trilateral summit.
Seems Ukraine is okay cutting Trump out of the next round, too.
That we are ready for a bilateral meeting with Putin, followed by a trilateral summit.
I did not show you all of the European leaders praising Taco for starting the talks by holding a summit with Puffin. Maybe there is something I don't understand about politics going on here, but I don't understand why, with 30 coalition of the willing members, the United States, and Ukraine, Puffin can't simply be told to take his troops and go home, or we will make you have a necessity to take your troops back into Russia.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
I mean, is there seriously a country out there that wants to allow the precedent of redrawing borders by force being set?
Phenomena.
Is there a country somewhere in the world that is like, yep, might makes right, we're good with more powerful countries stealing our land too?
Phenomena.
Is there a world leader who is such an egomaniac that he can't even stay on topic during press conferences about the war? Taco said a lot of off-topic stuff during his press conference with Zelensky. Let's take a look at some of it right now. Look, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you know how Taco gives a speech. Point, tangent, subtangent, finish tangent, restate points like you somehow miraculously just provided facts about it. He did that a lot during his press conference with Zelensky. Here's one of them.
You know, I've done 6 wars. I've been in 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one. And it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one.
The 6 wars Taco claims to have ended are: Israel-Iran. Trump bombed Iran's nuclear weaponization facilities. That's not exactly peace negotiations. This resulted in a ceasefire with a fragile truce. Democratic Republic of the Congo versus Rwanda. Trump brokered a peace deal, but violence by the rebels persists because it has not been implemented. Cambodia versus Thailand. Truce reached. US played a small part in achieving a ceasefire. India-Pakistan. India has publicly stated that Trump had nothing to do with their ceasefire. US versus Houthis. Trump said he would stop the attacks on the Houthis that he started if they stopped attacking our ships, achieving a ceasefire. Armenia versus Azerbaijan? Trump brokered a peace deal, but they haven't actually implemented. So if you're counting, that's 4 ceasefires and 2 unimplemented peace deals.
I didn't do any ceasefires.
Sometimes you just have to laugh at this guy, and sometimes you are absolutely horrified by him.
But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Brezhnev, but your son died because I am playing a high-stakes game of chess. No, we're not going to talk about the Epstein files right now.
Release the list.
I mean, seriously, dude, you're talking about human lives for a strategic advantage.
What the actual fuck did you just say to me right now?
How about you get Puffin over here again, and you tell him he has 2 choices. Option number 1, you get your troops out of Ukraine and stop attacking sovereign nations just to expand your borders right now. Option 2, we arrest you on that warrant because just because we don't have to doesn't mean we can't. So the only way Puffin gets to go home is if he seeds the war and creates peace.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Okay, let's talk about something that isn't costing people's lives, just their voices.
Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots.
Up front, I need to clarify that mail-in ballots and absentee ballots, though both mailed in and both ballots, are not the same thing. People using absentee ballots will still have that option, but check this out.
You know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them.
This is only true if you ignore the 34 countries on your screen right now.
Paper ballots, and paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else.
Why, Mr. President? Tell us why you want to go back to paper ballots.
We get much faster results. The machines, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks.
The machines give us the results instantaneously. It's the mail-in and absentee ballots that take the time to count because they are paper ballots.
Jimmy Carter, with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in.
What the Carter Commission actually said was, absentee ballots remain the largest source of potential voter fraud. Matter of fact, Jimmy Carter used mail-in ballots for the last several years of his life. Okay, now we all need something we can laugh at instead of being horrified.
And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time.
Let's hear all about the good news from a prominent DC restaurant owner.
Summer Restaurant Week in DC is a critical time for local restaurants looking to bring in new customers during one of their slowest months of the year. But this year,
since the crackdown, we've seen a chill in the air. They're sort of afraid to come outside their doors. They don't know what's going to happen.
Looks like the voices in Taco's head are lying to him again. Let's wrap this shit show up. What's the difference between leadership and control? According to Merriam-Webster's, leadership is the act of guiding in a direction, especially by going first. Control is to exercise restraining or directing influence over. So a leader is one who guides, while a controller is one who restrains and directs. So let me ask you some questions. If someone takes control of and increases law enforcement instead of cooperating with them, is that a leader or a controller? If someone controls the narrative by spreading lies and misinformation instead of making fact-based and verifiable statements, is that a leader or a controller? If someone attempts to silence their opposition by refusing to provide the information that their opposition needs, is that a leader or a controller? If someone constantly spreads falsehoods instead of being honest about both the good and bad ramifications of their decisions, is that a leader or a controller? What do your answers to these questions tell you about Donald Trump? Is Donald Trump a leader or a controller? This is a very important question because the answer to this question is the difference between democracy and fascism. I know my answer. Tell me yours in a comment. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell. And I'll see you next time there is an impossible knot to untie. Actions to deter violent crime in DC, and now violent crime de-escalation workers are work. 60 Minutes Australia released an entire 30-minute segment about this. Let's see what the media that... This is a very important question because